Hello everybody, welcome to Academy Live episode 20. It's been 20 episodes, 20 weeks. And we have a whole bunch of people here already. We have, I can see, of course, Joel in Houston, as always. We got Michael from Germany, who apparently has received his new B10 and is happy with that product. And what else? We have a whole bunch of people. Joel, you always think this guy in the intro is Jim Carrey. Yeah, he's kind of a lookalike, but there's a story behind that guy. He's the most used actor in Swedish movies and TV series that he never says anything. He's just like a background character, and I think he's been in like 600 or 900 different productions. So, but our movie, or the education on Academy, the Photo Academy in the fundamentals of lighting in Bishop, that's his first speaking role. After so many years, he finally got to speak, so that's an interesting one. And we have Åsa here as well, and Singapore is here, and a bunch of colleagues as well from Profoto. Awesome. So today, as you can see, there is no David here. David is locked up in a cabin out in the wilderness. He is there and he's writing a whole bunch of new stuff, both educational material and both for Academy, but then also he's working on other light theory books and so forth. So he's having a kind of a writer's break, well needed. And Colombia is here as well. Awesome. Today's topic is going to be OCF reflectors versus standard reflectors. And I've done some extensive tests with that. I'm going to show you as well how I did it and so forth, and share some of the findings so that you can make a good decision on what tools to use. And what do we mean then with different types of reflectors? Well, we have, for example, this one. This is the standard zoom reflector. And it comes with every Pro head that you buy or you rent. You always get this one. And this one is actually made for the Pro heads with an extruding flash bulb. And stuff happens when you put it on the flat front flash, like the B1, B10, B2, etc. So I want to show that to you. So because it's not really optimal, and it's mainly because there's a flat part over here in this area, and that creates some funky stuff with the light. But we're going to dig in deeper into that. So this is the standard zoom, and in order to make this really optimized for the OCF products, Profoto made this one, the OCF zoom. And as you can see, there's a it's not good to use me as a background since I'm black with black products. There's a difference in size on these two. The OCF products are much smaller and much easier to carry with you if you're out and traveling. Oh, here David is commenting, and he took a break from his concentrated writing to keep an eye on me. Oh my God. So I better say the right things now. And also, if you have questions, I'm sure David will be able to answer here on the comments. So good to know that he's here in spirit. First we thought that we're going to Skype him in, have a computer right next to us, but then it's going to mess up all other things. The more stuff you connect up, and I don't want to risk that. So that feels, David needs his break and he focus on his writing. And then also, so they also made some changes on the inside of these, both the coating and the pattern inside to really be optimized for the flat fronts. So those were the zoom reflectors, and then we have the large Wook here, which is the Magnum, which is one of my favorites. I mean, I like hard reflectors a lot. I like that, the kind of the hard light that comes from them. So I'm right now in the hard reflector period of my life, I guess. So I use them a lot. And this is the old or the standard Magnum that works very well with with the Pro heads. Funny fact that there's more dimples in here. I don't know if we can see those. You can see some of them. All those are actually hammered in there by hand, so they're not machine made, and must be really tedious because there's quite a lot of them and they're big. This one produces great light, and also it has a kind of a 2x effect on the power. So if you need extra power, and let's say you're out with a B2 or a B10, for example, and you have 250 watts. With the Magnum, you will actually go from 250 to 500 to 1,000 watt in power output, because what it does is basically collects all the photons that goes out and then focus them everything going straight forward. And then all these small dimples in here, they act like small mirrors, so it's really giving a lot of kick using this one. And then we have the OCF Magnum, a lot easier to carry. Let's see if we can find some white background here. As you can see, it's a lot smaller, a lot easier to carry with you, and it gives exactly the same effect as the standard Magnum. Also gives you 2x. So if you are trying to fight the sun in Arizona or in Dallas or Houston or any other place, and I really recommend you to bring a Magnum, because they will give you a lot of kick. And if nothing else, you also save batteries when using Magnum, because you can pull down the power on the flash and get the same output and same effect, same exposure on the image. So with less power on the flash, which means you can take a lot more flashes with that one. So with that, I don't see any questions coming up so far. Photons, I love photons, or yeah, waves, Stephen, exactly. Sometimes you talk about light rays, but they are actually electromagnetic radiation. But we all know what we talk about when we talk about the photons and rays and waves. So let's take a look at how I did that test actually, and I'll walk you through, for example, with the zoom reflector, and show you how I did it, and then we'll come back and look at the presentation and see kind of what we did. So I'm going to switch over to I'll be off from here, so I won't be able to see your questions right away when I'm over at the other place, but I'll come back and I'll scroll through the images, so keep posting questions. So here we go. Let's walk over here. So let me explain a little bit what we have here. We have a camera on a steady tripod, which is one of those tripods that I know David likes a lot. He doesn't like those flimsy, lightweight stuff. He wants everything to be big and rigid. So just because he's not here, I figured I'm going to annoy him and use a proper stand. Whenever he's here, I bring my lightweight travel stands. So we have camera here, and the two products that I'm actually using is, one, I'm using the B10, and I placed it 10 meters from the wall, and I've also taped up this little measurement. It's 1 meter in between each, so I can see kind of what happens with the light coverage, etc. So it's 2 meters from the flash, the end of the flash to the wall, and then I have about 1.5 meters to the camera with a 24 millimeter. So it's and then the second one, I'm also using the Pro head with the Pro 10, just to get a reference. So I'm also taking a picture with the standard zoom and the standard Magnum, so that we can see how the light source looks like. So I've also used this beast here. And then we have we have a light meter here. We'll just turn that one on. And of course we have Ken here, as you can see. Ken is also part of the equation. So we have a light meter, and what I did is that I popped off a flash, and then I looked at it and gave me 5.6. Good. Then I have a value. I look at the power level, I'm at 7.3, and then I put the OCF zoom on, and pop another flash, and it gives me a little bit over 8, so I probably need to go down one full step. So we go down to see this one is not reacting, he's not talking, so I'll go down manually, go from 7.3 to 6.3, and then we pop off another flash, and we get 5.6 on this one. So there's a full stop difference with the bare head versus the OCF zoom. So I take that, I did the measure, captured those numbers. I'll show you all the numbers later in the presentation. And then what I do is that I take a picture with this guy, see, yeah, it's on. Take a picture like that. And then I have a picture of the light coverage. Now I know how it looks like, this kind of the stamp of light that pops in. And then I turn this guy around and took a picture of the light source. And let's do it like this. So I kind of want to see what happens in here when I put light in it. So I take a picture, and we go up and go boom. There, we got the picture of that. So now we know how the light source looked like. And why is that important? Well, that actually gives us an idea of what effect this will have on anything that I put in there. But again, so those are the two kind of nerdy things. I have a piece of tape here, so I know exactly, so I put everything on the same spot so that I'm really measuring apples with apples. And with that, the next thing is looking at, okay, so what happens if I put something in front of the flash? So that's when I take off the camera and the tether cable all tangled up, and then I take a picture of Ken like that. Awesome. So now I have a picture of the light coverage, I have a picture of the light source, and I have a picture of Ken with all the shadows, etc. So we can see what actually happens on the image. So I did that with I went through the B10 with all the different the bare head, OCF zoom, standard zoom, OCF Magnum, and the standard Magnum. So I took a lot of pictures. I'm not going to bore you by redoing it now. So I'm like a TV chef. I prepared that right before we started this. So I've already done that, and so got all the pictures in the computer. And then I did the same thing with the Pro head for the standard reflector, so that we have a reference point. So let's go back over to the desk. It's a massive studio, so it's a long walk. So here we are. So now we've done all that. Let's first take a look at what happens with power. So we jump over here. So the results, if you look at the B10, if I use it on a bare head, and in order to get the light meter to actually show 5.6, I need to put the power level at 7.3. And then when I add the standard zoom, I can take it down a little bit more than half a stop, down to 6.7. And with the OCF zoom, I'm down at 6.3. So only with the zoom, which is now on the flash over there, it actually saves me a full stop. That's half the power, which means almost twice as many flashes on the battery. So if I know that I'm going to shoot a lot of pictures, just by putting on the OCF zoom, I get almost twice as many flashes out of the battery, which is a good thing. And it also zooms in the photons and brings it all in. so that we don't have to light walls, etc. So we and waste photons basically. And then I did the same thing with the standard Magnum. Then the power level again went down a little bit more than half a stop to 5.7. And then with the OCF Magnum, it went down to 5.5. So I'm almost 2 f-stops down, which means I save a lot of battery. But also, if I go up, I can go up almost 2 stops to get up to 7.3, which gives me a lot of power. So this is really interesting. So this is good if you want to either outpower the sun, or if you want to save batteries. So here you see the different power levels, and these are the levels that are on the B10. So you're basically putting it on 7.3, and of course it varies even by moving a little bit on the flash back and forth the wall. But this is 2 meters, so I think it's a 6 foot and 7 inches. If we use US metrics or US measures. But in general, it gives you two stops more, the OCF Magnum, and 1 f-stop more with the OCF Zoom. So we'll see if we have any questions. This is so out of my league, says Adriana. Sorry, a beginner here is watching, but don't worry. I think the key learning here is that if you use some of these reflectors, is that you save batteries, basically. That's what you're doing. You're saving batteries, but we are a little bit geeky here. So, anyway, David says, yeah, let him conclude, and he put it in a non-nerdy way. I'll try to get there. So, next thing was I took a picture of the light source. And to the left, you see an OCF Zoom reflector on the B10. Fairly even. There's a small, thin black ring, which is basically the plastic around the frosted glass. Then when I put on a standard zoom on the B10, you'll see that there's a big black ring in the middle. And basically, you have 2 light sources. You have one in the middle, which is the flash itself. And then you have an outer ring, so you have 2 different light sources. So you will have two sets of shadows. And then when I put on the standard zoom on a Pro head, which is the picture all the way to the right, you can see that it's much more even. So here you can clearly tell that it's made for the extruding light bulb. And Jesper is asking, he's using an old school zoom reflector with the B2 heads. Is it comparable to the newer OCF reflectors in values? Not really, because I mean, what you see here on this picture is that you see there's a black ring in the middle, so it takes away some, it's not as efficient in popping out those power levels. And also, if you look at the table that I had here, B10 is a 250 watt second flash, similar to the B2, and so you'll probably see the similar ratios in between the different reflectors on your B2 as well. So you see that there's almost a little bit more than half a stop more power coming out of the OCF Zoom versus the old school. And so there we had the light sources, the standard zoom and the OCF Zoom, and I finished off with the Pro head. So if we now take a look at what do these light sources actually do on an image. So these are the images that I took of Ken, and I want to focus in on these little knobs down here, the shadow that's where you see the light stand and the little thing in there. So I zoomed in, and then we see this. And if you are watching on an iPhone somewhere on the road, then you probably won't see much. But if you look at this on the computer afterwards, you will see that on the far left, which is the OCF zoom reflector on the B10, there it has a very, very even gradient. You have darkness, the shadow, and then it's a kind of a very even, nice gradient or a fall off into light. And then when you put the standard zoom on the B10, you see there's basically two distinct shadows. So it's not so much of a smooth gradient. You have two different shadows coming out of that one. And then the standard zoom on the Pro head, you have still a gradient, but it's a thinner, or it's not as distinct. It looks like a double shadow, but it's when you zoom in, it's a fairly smooth gradient on that one as well. So here clearly the recommendation, use the standard zoom on a Pro head or the OCF zoom on the B10. You can of course use the standard zoom, but do be prepared. If you have any thrown shadows that are coming from something, you will see a double edge on those shadows when you use the old school standard zoom on the flat front. And then the next step was going into the Magnum, the world of Magnums. It's basically these guys, the big guys. Big standard Magnum and the smaller OCF Magnum. And then if we look at what actually happened, on the very left you have the OCF Magnum on the B10. As you can see, again, very nice even light source. You have this thin black line in the middle around the flash, which is basically the plastic cover on the flash. But then when you put on a standard Magnum on the B10, then all of a sudden a lot of things happen. There's a huge black area in the middle. So in the middle you have the flash, and then you have this big black ring that doesn't submit any light at all. And then at the very, very outer part you see a ring again of light. And then I compared on the last picture on the very right, you see the standard Magnum on the Pro head. And here you can see again it's very even, very nice light source with this thin black ring around the flash, which is basically the parts on the flash that are keeping everything together. So this will of course have a big impact, and taking the same pictures and looking at the OCF Magnum on the far left with the B10, and then the standard Magnum on the B10, and then finally on the right side the standard Magnum on the Pro head. And really focusing on the far left one, you see it's very nice even shadow, no double shadows or anything. You have a nice gradient. And then in the middle where it has the standard Magnum, there's a lot of stuff happening, which is basically it's all going bonkers. And this will be impacted if you, for example, if you're shooting furniture. Let's say you're taking pictures of a kitchen, and you have the legs of a chair, etc. You will have these funky looking shadows on the floor. So that's why you should use the OCF ones for the flat fronts. And Jim is asking if the same modifier recommendation for the B10 and the D1, D2s. Exactly. So any flash with the flat front, that's where you need to have the special ones. And also these, the pattern inside, it's optimized for the OCF reflectors, so that it will basically make use of as much of the photons coming out of the flash as possible, really focusing it all going forward, and so you can use them. So this is the bad boy that you should use as much as possible. So those were the findings, and if we go into some conclusions, and this is kind of the non-nerdy way of explaining this whole thing, is that you can use all modifiers on all lights. That's not a problem. But if you want to have the best results when it comes to both efficiency in using the power and also in the impact that the light has on the thrown shadows, you need to use the OCF reflectors for the flat front flashes or the OCF flashes, but Jim is correct, I need to include the D1 and D2 as well, even though they're not OCF, but they are flat fronts. And then use the standard reflectors for the Pro heads, because they are truly optimized to do the best work on those. So that was kind of the quick lowdown on how the reflectors work and why we have two sets of reflectors. And we talked about some of this as well last week when we did a comparison on flat front versus bare bulb flashes. That there are a few reflectors, like for example the standard zoom, the Magnum, the soft light reflector, which is a big hard beauty dish. But for all those there is an alternative for the OCF Magnum, OCF Zoom, and then you have the OCF Beauty Dish, etc. So you have those as alternatives. So also is asking what kind of effect of a double shadow to the face. Well, so if you would think about the shadow that I have on this side here, which is basically self shadow, it will not have an impact. But any thrown shadow, so from the nose tip there will be a thrown shadow coming from my nose tip towards the cheek here. That shadow will also have a double edge if you use any of those like the Magnum or the standard zoom reflector. So any thrown shadow from an object like a nose and or the glasses, etc. In this case, if I would put a flash here, there would be a hard shadow coming from my frames on the glass. So that's that's basically what happens. What will happen on the self shadow is that if you use a zoom or a Magnum and you focus the light a little bit more and don't hit walls, you might increase the contrast. So since you're not creating new light sources with the walls, it's kind of similar to a grid, but they're much wider. And depending on the size of the room, you might get slightly darker shadows. Michael is asking here, is the Zenith coming out soon? Zenith was a test that we did. There was a limited edition that was sent out to some rental houses in different parts of the world to test out some products and see how it will work. I have no idea what's coming out of these tests, etc. I can't. I wish I could, but I can't comment anymore because I don't know anymore. So that was that about these reflectors. Jason, thank you for your love. You love watching these. We love making these as well, and I'm sure David is struggling now when he's sitting in his cabin and not being able to be here and chit-chatting about light. But he will be back. He will be back, and we'll have a whole bunch of new interesting topics to talk about. And we will also have, let's see, not next week, but the week after. So I think that's the 14th or so. We will have 14th of November. We will have actually the guy behind the B10, Göran Maren. He will be here, and he's basically the product manager or the person who's been responsible or behind the whole development of the product and production and all the ins and outs. So we're going to have him over here, and we're going to chat with him and talk about. Hopefully, we get some cool insider facts about the B10 or the development of the product, and also if you have any specific questions around it, we will make sure that we answer him or ask the questions when he's here. And that's also what kind of the scary part with these things, that we are live, and so we can't really get away from the questions, and you will immediately see if we don't go back and respond to certain questions. So I think it would be interesting to see and hear a little bit about the R&D behind the B10. What does it take to develop a flash like the B10? How long does it take? What challenges did they have with the flash, etc.? So there's a whole bunch of interesting questions that I have, at least. I'm curious and I want to know about them. And if you want to listen to that, fine. If you don't, then you can just choose to click somewhere else. But both me and David will have some fun and ask all the tricky questions to him and to still our curiosity. So, well, David, if I were there, I would show the beautiful sound of the Magnum. Okay, this is for you then, David. That's a beautiful sound. So now David is happy. This is special for David. It does have a beautiful sound. You can use it as a lampshade as well, which we actually have in our kitchen here at Profoto. We use these different type of hard reflectors as lampshades, so they look really cool and stylish. I haven't seen if they're going to sell those or not. If they will, I will definitely have a few, at least one in my kitchen. Awesome. Michael Moon, he got his Duo kit yesterday. Great. Oh, David is so happy now that he heard the Magnum sound. If you don't have any more questions, I think we'll round off and let you guys run away and continue doing your things. In some places, finish the day or start the day in other parts of the world. And post questions under the comments. If you see this offline later, you can still post them. We monitor these and make sure that we answer all the questions as much as we can. So with that, I think we'll move over and finish off, as always, with a little bit of a video. And talk to you soon and see you guys next week. Bye.
Do you want to learn how to light the background? In this course, we scrap all the unnecessary, overwhelming information that you see online today. Here's what you actually need to start lighting the background. My name is David Bischow. I am the light shaping expert at Profoto Academy. And in this course, you will learn the different types of shadows, light pattern, enhancing the background. Different type of shadows, the importance of understanding self-shadows and how to shape thrown shadows. Light pattern, how to control the light pattern and how that impacts contrast. Enhance the background, how to enhance the background in an exciting and natural way. So, join me in this course and I will show you how to get started today, no matter the equipment you're using.